In the U.S., 10,000 people turn 65 every day. In the next 15 years, the number of Americans 85 or older will more than double. As the baby boomer generation retires and ages, the need for caregivers will continue to grow dramatically. If you haven't needed to assist a family member, arrange for in-home support or assisted living, there's a good chance that will happen. More than 41 million Americans provide unpaid care for an adult over 50. Those are just some of the numbers that define what's become a growing challenge. In fact, many families don't face their caregiving reality until a medical crisis brings it on. America's caregiving dilemma was front and center at a recent public conversation at the University of Charleston's Downtown Innovation Hub.
When you hear the word caregiving, what comes to mind?
The absolute stress of trying to do everything, not only for the person that needs the care, but for your home, for yourself, managing day to day, the finances, just everything that's involved.
Kathy Talley works for the Metro Area Agency on Aging and cared for her husband when he developed dementia. A caregiver can be defined in many ways. A parent taking care of a child, an adult taking care of an elderly relative, or a non-relative who gets paid to provide care. Many at our recent event say they face the same burdens and challenges.
A lot of work, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of unanswered questions.
Panic, sadness, stress. It's all encompassing. Your life goes away, and it's all about the caregiving.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting and PRX, this is Us and Them, the show that tells the stories about the things that divide us and bring us together. I'm Trey Kay. West Virginia faces unique caregiving challenges. As one of the oldest states in the nation, nearly 21% of our population is over 65. West Virginia also faces economic pressures that limit access to both elder care and child care. And with the passage of President Donald Trump's Big Beautiful Bill, with more than $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts over the next decade, caregiving access won't get easier. According to Families USA, a nonpartisan organization advocating for healthcare consumers, those budget cuts have the potential to affect rural hospitals and communities the most. All of this creates a caregiving landscape in West Virginia that is deeply complex and in urgent need of attention. Our recent public event includes an audience of community members, many of them who are caregivers themselves, and a panel of experts to reflect on what caregiving looks like across the state. Our panelists include Dr. Orlando Craighead, the Executive Director of the Kanawha Coalition for Community Health Improvement.
I work with different organizations, and I try to get those resources to our community through different events, coalitions, and I do these mini health fairs to show that seniors have resources. Because what I found out here in Kanawha County, when my grandmother was sick, we were looking for resources, and we didn't know where to go. It's a community-based type of giving we have to give. We can't rely on the same old system to help us. We as West Virginians have to help ourselves. We have to help each other. We have to bring our community together, bring these organizations together in order to provide the care that we need.
Another panelist is Eric Hicks, president of Right at Home.
We provide in-home care services throughout southern West Virginia, and what we do is non-medical home care. The things that are not skilled, we provide both personal care and companion care services. So our caregivers can provide either one of those services, and our Charleston office, we service Kanawha and Putnam County, and then we have 3 other offices here in southern West Virginia.
Our final panelist is Kimberly Taylor Newsom, Program Director for the West Virginia Aging and Disability Resource Center, also known as the ADRC.
My agency is a statewide resource agency. We are not a direct service provider, meaning that we don't have people who come out and provide those services in your home, but we get you in touch with the agencies that can do that for you. We want to have those fragmented resources across the state gathered together in one place so that everybody can find what they need without calling 5 or 6, 10 different numbers. And often we do find that people don't know what to do because they don't realize how deep they're in until it's too late. And we always say we want people to know us before they need us.
During the community event, we play several clips from the recently released PBS WETA documentary entitled Caregiving. From executive producer Bradley Cooper, the program focuses on caregivers' experiences, including Cooper's as he cared for his dying father. Another caregiver in the program is Tracy Ekrit, who spent time caring for her father at the end of his life.
My dad has been living with me for a little over 3 years now. He has Alzheimer's disease. Caregiving was just not something that I had done before, but I was ready to do whatever it took to make sure that my dad had a quality to his life. It was a roller coaster of grief. It was like becoming so real that my dad was declining and that it was going to be like this until we were done.
In this video, Ekrit is helping her father with every aspect of his day-to-day life. Brushing his hair, helping him dress, feed him, and making sure he takes the medication he needs. I ask Eric Hicks whether it's common for an adult child to care for a parent with dementia or memory loss, and how often does Right at Home get these calls?
Yes, I mean, many times that we deal with that, and what has happened is that the family caregiver, whether husband, wife, they really get burnt out. And it's important that the family, the member that's taking care of that person, also have respite. And there have been instances in my 20 years of running this company where I've actually seen the person that gives the care pass away prior to the person that was receiving care because they just overworked themselves to a point of exhaustion. So, I would highly recommend if anybody that is a caregiver, make sure you're aware of yourself and make sure you take care of yourself first. And it'd be well worth it to go ahead and invest and try to give yourself a break or a respite from that so you can come back strong and help your loved one.
What are the unique challenges for us in West Virginia with regard to caregiving? Kimberly?
So obviously, there are very rural areas where some of those resources are more scarce. We find that primarily with transportation. We don't have agencies that have resources to drive miles and miles off a main road for one person. As the generations go on, a lot of those younger generations are moving away. And so they're trying to do that caregiving from other states. We get calls from people who are in the military overseas. My mom needs help. I need somebody to help her today. Every case is unique, but I think those are probably the two main issues that we come across.
Dr. Craig, I saw you nod your head, but a question I had for you in many ways is how does our medical system prepare families for this situation? I hear some laughing.
Yeah, as you could tell, most people in here already know they really don't prepare because there's no way when Kim was talking about that, I'm one of those people that lived out of state. I lived in North Carolina. So I would come up from North Carolina. I'd spend 3-4 days here. And, I'd sit and talk with her, and she was on dialysis. So I understand. I have plenty of friends that lived in New York, New Jersey, Atlanta. They would come home, or some of them have even moved back home just because they need to take care of their family. I came back here, and I was helping my grandma. My mother fell down the steps. So it was like, I can't go. I got to stay. And Lord knows I have spent my life trying to leave West Virginia, but I have found that this is where I need to be. And at that moment, I was like, wow, I was like, this is surreal. I'm back home and I'm here for a purpose. And I'm here helping take care of my mom, take care of my grandmother, going to the grocery store, running my grandmother to dialysis. It's real life. Like Kim said, we talking about rural areas. You don't have to go far. You can go right here in downtown Charleston. There are people that need care. There are people in some of these towers around here. They need care. It's not the way you think it is, where they have all these great services. They're going to take you to the grocery store. The doctors are going to come. No, it doesn't work like that. We are all sitting here trying to figure out how can we help the seniors in this community. And these two are just a piece of it. We have other people out here trying to do the same thing. And like I said, it needs to be more of a community base of care because, we have young people, they're not coming back. They're not going to come back to this area to do that. So we have to figure out how to work as a community to actually provide these services.
So Kimberly Taylor Newsom, you and I spoke before, and some people in the audience might know, my father at a relatively young age, about 55 years old, had a fall in his house and he had a spinal cord injury. Now, I can tell you that nobody in our family was expecting that to happen. And all of a sudden, instantly, we have a caregiving need. Is that a unique situation?
That is not a unique situation. It happens all the time. And the ADRC has been an entity since 2003. And every day, I went to a meeting today, I've never heard about you. What do you do? We were in Dunbar for 13 years. The city council, the people did not know who we were and what we did. And if we don't make people aware of what's out there, they're going to struggle far longer than they should. And another situation that we come across in this is the people that do come back to help their families, if it's a full-time care need, they can't work. So now you're down to a Social Security income, trying to keep 2, maybe 3 people afloat. It gets very desperate very quickly.
Is there the first number? Like if you were to say to somebody here tonight who is new to this, was like my family was back in the day, is there a first number? And if there's not a first number, who should it be?
Obviously, I want it to be me. There's so much more than to any given situation than just the personal care aspect. We're going to get people in touch with the service that provides the in-home personal care. But we also want to take the time to assess that person's needs for basic necessities: housing, food, transportation. Do you have the medications that you need? Do you have food stamps? Do you have assistance with your Medicare? What else do you need? So we try to listen to that person, get their story, ask some questions to get some clarification, and then we say, okay, let's start here, and we go down that list. So we want to make sure, and not just for the person who's receiving the caregiving, but the person who is the caregiver. Because if they get sick, it's a whole different world.
One of my childhood friends is in our audience today. Debbie Bose Elkins had a nursing career, but she's here to tell us about her more recent experience as a full-time caregiver to her spouse, who has significant memory loss.
I don't think I've still wrapped my head around it. When we first started noticing issues in 2017, it was a denial. Is there something wrong? And as you mentioned, I'm a nurse. I should recognize. But when you see changes happening in your own loved one, you start to second guess. And once we journeyed through getting a diagnosis, which was indeed a journey, I mean, from asking questions in 2017 of his primary care physician to seeing a neurologist and being told he was okay, but knowing that he wasn't okay, and eventually getting an Alzheimer's diagnosis and then finding out that it was indeed not Alzheimer's, and seeing 4 different neurologists, the journey became exhausting that I didn't even have time to think about what providing care might be.
And did you make a call or contact to folks like here to? No? Why?
Because likely, as Kimberly has indicated, I didn't know who to call. And I think that's, a big issue. When you've got cancer, when you have another medical condition, you know the steps that are going to be taken. And when you're diagnosed with another catastrophic illness, people are showing up with casseroles and they understand. But when your loved one is diagnosed with a dementia, you don't know who to call. You're just trying to get through the process of getting a diagnosis. And then when you get the diagnosis and you realize that it's something for which there's no treatment and there's no cure, for me, the anger, the grief, the shock, and even though this is something I knew and I could see coming, I knew there was a problem. But then when you get the diagnosis, you have this period of paralysis. At least for me, I had a period of paralysis.
But do you have advice, like for somebody who is in your place?
Yes.
What would you advise somebody who was at the beginning of this challenge?
What I had to tell myself was get yourself up, dust yourself off. You have work to do. No one else is going to do it for you.
The situation is also critical for millions of paid care workers. The work can be difficult, with the median wage of about $15.40 an hour. As a result, more than 90% of nursing homes and nearly 70% of assisted living facilities report significant or severe worker shortages. The PBS documentary Caregiving reflects on how undervalued professional caregivers are.
Millions of vast majority women and majority women of color who work providing the care that makes everything else possible. The child care, the elder care, the attendance for people with disabilities, and they're underpaid. They don't have benefits. They don't have any kind of job security or health care. So the women that we're counting on to take care of us and our families can't take care of themselves or their own families in this profession.
Despite that, the U.S. Labor Department proposes to throw out minimum wage rules for home care workers. It's part of an effort to, quote, restore prosperity through deregulation. Under one proposal, an estimated 3.7 million home care workers could be paid below the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Care workers would also be ineligible for overtime pay unless they're covered by state laws. I have to wonder about why we undervalue this type of work. Why are caregivers' wages so low? And what does that say about our society? Each of our panelists have some thoughts, beginning with Dr. Craighead.
Well, I think first you'd have to value the population of the elderly. If you don't value that population, how do you value the people that's going to serve them?
And we can obviously teach the skill set. We can't teach the heart part. If you're in this type of profession to retire with $1 million, you chose wrong. But when they find a caregiver that they like, that's a relationship, and they do not want to give that up.
And that is the key, is finding the right relationship, the right combination, the right person or people to do the job. And we put a lot of emphasis on that. Many times it's playing Cupid. When we go out and we meet with a family, we learn, what type of care they need, where are they located, what time they need care. And then we go back and we look at our roster to try to find the appropriate person to do that. And that can be, that can be hit or miss.
Professional caregivers take on a tremendous responsibility. And yet, as Kimberly Taylor Newsom points out, many times there is no opportunity for advancement. People end up leaving caregiving jobs for work in fast food or even big box retailers for better hours and pay. Another person at our community event is Tina Weissman. She's the executive director of the West Virginia Developmental Disabilities Council.
It really comes down to the state putting the investment and the federal government putting that investment where it's really needed. And, if you don't have the money to pay the wages, then you can't pay the wages. And I think we all know that we're living in a time where Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and anything related to the aged, the disabled is under attack.
Dr. Orlando Craighead says, unfortunately, when it comes to caregiving, many things come down to money.
With all the programs that are being cut, I myself worry about, well, how do I help the seniors in this population? Where do we get the resources from? And unless somebody steps up and says, we're going to have this big grant out here and we're going to fund XYZ program, some of these organizations, they want butts in the seats. They got to have so many people to serve so many people to get so much money from the Medicaid and Medicare system, or they're not going to get paid. And I understand that it does come down to those dollars.
Steve Vorhold is my friend from high school and is now a physical therapist who works in patients' homes. He echoes Dr. Craighead's point about the declining population in West Virginia and how it affects caregiving.
The biggest problem we see, and I think you can attest and agree, most of the folks that we went to high school with left. They're not around. There are no family members to help. Or we're on the phone with a daughter in Michigan and a son in Texas, trying to coordinate care with them. Transportation is a big issue. The other problem that we have is just follow up with the acute medical care, where their discharge planning is lacking, equipment that these people need when they come home, and you've got, just like an older couple, taking care of each other, and the caregiver ends up being the one that sacrifices their health. They can't take the time to go follow up with their doctor. We've had cancer patients that are missing infusions and chemo because they're at home taking care of their husband.
What I've experienced, and I think Eric spoke about this before, is there's a great deal of burnout.
Oh, quickly, yes.
Quickly.
And they're not prepared for it. They're not educated on it. And there's just not a good, sustainable support system for them.
Next up to the mic is Tabitha Justice. She's the founder of Bringing Back the Village and Just Us Retirement Solutions. Justice helps seniors navigate their retirement options and helps them connect with the services they may need.
When it comes to caregiving, this topic, there is so much heaviness to it. There's so much that we can't do to solve it. But I did want to bring up that there are a few small steps that each of us can do to help make the process a little bit easier. So, number one, we just need to acknowledge aging in America is very expensive and it's very complicated. So I think the more we talk about that and we acknowledge it, it's a big help.
But who needs to hear that?
So that's the thing. Chances are 75% of America's population today is going to need care. That's just a fact. And yet all of us pretend or stick our head in the ground and we act like it's not going to affect us. Or we can look at it later. We can plan for it when it happens. And as we've all acknowledged, it happens. And it comes up to us before we notice. So the biggest recommendation that I can give is, number one, for you, plan for it. Have the conversation with your family members now. Let them know what's in place. Do you have money to pay for it? What kind of care do you want? Do you want to be at home? Do you want to be in a nursing home? Yes, it's a really hard conversation, but what's much harder is guessing. Is this what mom would have wanted? Is this what dad would have wanted? So I just wanted to put that out there. Like, this is a heavy topic, but you make it way heavier by ignoring it and not having the conversations long ahead of time.
Thank you so much. That seems like incredibly helpful. Do we have another question there?
I'm one of those people who left my
my career and home in New York to come back here. I thought I was just moving back here to help my mom with my dad because he had heart surgery that left him with dementia. So he was not the same person as the one who went in there for surgery at Cleveland Clinic. 6 weeks in Cleveland with him recuperating from that, and my mother-in-law has a stroke and loses all function on one side of her body. She has dementia. So we came back to that, and we're just thrown in the deep end. So the thing about not being prepared for it is really, really important. I could not get nursing care at home. Her insurance was not going to pay for her to be in a nursing home at all. So anymore, there was a limit to how much, I guess it was Medicare would pay for that. So we had to take care of her at home. And I couldn't get medical care because it didn't qualify as medical necessity. Despite the fact that she had dementia, incontinence, she couldn't move, I had to take care of her and somehow figure all that out, how to get her through a day.
At this point, I noticed Kimberly Taylor Newsom nodding along. And she jumps in to explain that Medicare can pay for rehabilitation. But when a patient can no longer progress, it then becomes a long-term care situation that can be covered by Medicaid if you qualify.
So if you don't have long-term care insurance or Medicaid, you got to pay out of pocket.
That sounds just maddening, right?
It will make you crazy.
When we come back after a break, we'll continue the conversation on caregiving and hear more from people on all sides of the care dynamic who are trying to change the landscape.
The bill was introduced, it passed unanimously. We do need to continue to call our representatives to show up.
That's how the movement will change. So never underestimate your story. If or when you're comfortable with it, please tell it.
That's coming up next. You're listening to Us and Them. This program is supported in part with a grant from the WETA, the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation, the Daywood Foundation, and the CRC Foundation.
Music lifts us up and brings us together, even when we can't get together in person. Mountain Stage brings you live performances on the air, online, and in our podcast. They remind you how it feels to be in a live audience listening to live music. This is Larry Gross, host of Mountain Stage. Find a link to our stations and our podcast online at mountainstage.org.
Hey, it's Trey, and you're listening to Us and Them from PRX and West Virginia Public Broadcasting. At our recent conversation on caregiving at the University of Charleston's Downtown Innovation Hub, some people were there to share frustrations. Others came to seek community. Before the panel discussion, we asked people a question. If they had a magic wand, what would they change about caregiving in the state of West Virginia?
Socialized medicine. Everybody should have an equal opportunity for care.
My magic wand would conjure up centers in communities where caregivers could ask for respite, would be made known of the resources that were available to them, and that money would be invested in this particular population.
If we could just have people start having conversations about how to prepare and share those conversations, that would take away probably 50% of the financial and emotional issues that people have. It doesn't cost anything to share that conversation with other people. I just wish people were not afraid to talk about it.
All right, try it on me.
We need to look in the mirror, say to ourselves, think of the service that these people are providing.
There you go.
The importance of the job. And let's please reimagine not only what they mean to us, but how we should treat them, how we should pay them, how we should respect them.
That's a clip from a recently released PBS WETA documentary called Caregiving, which examines the complicated role of caring for another person.
So we just saw a caregiver providing extraordinary, almost familial care. And so I'm asking you, the panel, in your experience, how common is that kind of emotional investment among caregiving professionals? And are they compensated in a way that reflects that value of the care they give?
No, I mean, and that's one of the reasons why we started, I started the Home Care Association of West Virginia because, we need a unified voice going to the state trying to get the compensation and what we were reimbursed higher so that we could pay more. There's so many people that have a kind, caring attitude and want to be able to do this type of work. But many times they were forced to maybe work at a big box store, and go to Walmart or Target and do something because the differential in pay was $3 or $4 an hour. But we were very successful in working with the state, and as of October of last year, we were able to get a 34% raise. So now we're really able to pay people $15 an hour, and we've been able to try to work and get our caregivers better compensated. So the people that do have the kind, caring attitude, we can hire them and they can find and do something that they find fulfilling.
Many in the audience at our community conversation are caregivers. Peg Nagum has been a caregiver to both of her parents and has learned how to have hard conversations with elderly parents about finances and legal issues that can arise. When Nagum's mother was suffering from dementia, she knew helping her parents pay their bills would require power of attorney to access their accounts. Her mother was hesitant, but Nagum found a way to navigate the issue.
What I told her, and Dad went along with it, so then Mom went along with it, was, I know, Mom, that you are in your right mind. Let's be honest, she was not in her right mind. But if we sign this now, we can put it aside until we need it. In an emergency, I can pull it out. I won't have to pull it out until the emergency happens. But if you don't do it and an emergency happens, I can't pay your bills. And so Dad said, let's do this. And so Mom said yes. But that made a big difference. And it saying that we could prepare and then I can set it aside so that it's available.
Legal documents and healthcare directives can provide a clear approach to medical and financial decisions for families. A family practice and elder care lawyer, Rachel Carrico, says it's important to have a basic estate plan.
That will open so many doors and make life so much easier. But the most important element is that durable power of attorney. And I cannot tell you, I call it the golden egg of estate planning, because even if you are married and your spouse has an IRA or a 401k that only their name is on, if you do not have that durable, that's a financial power of attorney, giving you access to that, you cannot get access to it. You cannot do it. The only way you can do it is to go through a conservatorship and guardianship proceeding with the court. That's about probably 70% of my practice. It's unfortunate. I wish I didn't have to do them ever. They're stressful, they're prolonged, they're expensive. But if you do nothing else, if you take away nothing else from the talk tonight, go out and get yourself a durable power of attorney if you don't have one. And then the other thing that I do a lot of is caregiving agreements for family members, because I do Medicaid asset protection planning. So if family members on the Medicaid laws are considered gratuitous caregivers. So if you do not have a caregiving agreement and you are paying your child or somebody that you are related to, most likely a child, Medicaid may penalize you from becoming qualified for Medicaid if you do not have a properly drafted caregiving agreement.
Kimberly Taylor Newsom says sometimes it takes a range of experiences to have the answers.
I got that call today, and the only reason I could tell them about the personal care contract is because I worked for Department of Human Services. Otherwise, they would not have known. And whatever they paid their family member would have been considered a penalty.
We have another question here.
One question and a whole lot of thanks. I'm that one statistical anomaly that does come back. My name's Sam Stockton. I've been caring for my mom, providing like reading services for her since I was like 10 years old, and recently was able to, thank God, move back home to help take care of my grandparents. One of the things that I've done a lot of over the last few years is because, well, my mother's visually impaired, and my grandparents, I dare say, never really learned how to use computers. And so when so much is done digitally these days, do you all offer resources for people who maybe don't know how to use this technology or have impairments that immediately affect their ability to use it? Are you all able to connect people with services that could help people navigate those things?
Okay. Yes. Part of what we do is if someone cannot fill out an application, we help them fill it out over the phone. We mail it to them with highlights of where they need to sign or any information that might be missing. Include a self-addressed stamped envelope for them to mail back to us, and we take those next steps for them. Our office is open from 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. We rarely require an appointment unless it's for Medicare open enrollment, because we have a lot of people during that time. But we also rely on other agencies, people at Kanawha Valley Senior Services. Their social workers will help. We go and do on-site applications for things. I'm more than willing to come to churches, whatever you need. Like I said, I take it very personally. I want to make sure everybody gets exactly what they need. And that may be that I call Tabitha or I call my friend Bonnie back there, who's the expert with healthy grandfamilies. Whatever it might be, we're never going to say, I'm sorry, I can't help you fill that out. We'll do it.
There are many familiar faces at our recent event, including Bonnie Dunn. We featured Bonnie in a story back in 2020 about grandparents who are caregivers and the unique challenges they face.
Grand families.
The reason USDA wanted us to pull grand families out and do a study on them alone is because it's a totally different dynamic. I can be an aunt and take on my sister's children. That's one thing. But if I'm the grandmother and I take on the grandchildren, the dynamics of the relationship changes.
Why is that?
It's because going to grandma's house was always lots of fun. I went there, I got sugared up, could stay up late. What happens at grandma's stays at grandma's.
How did you know in 2015 that it was a problem or that it was a challenge that West Virginia needed support for grandparents who were raising their children's children?
Well, simply through what the U.S. Census was saying. You know, if a state is in the upper 5 of a problem, in the negative, then there's a problem.
Many people at our recent community conversation say awareness is one of the biggest issues in finding and getting help as a caregiver. Dunn explains how she raised awareness of her program.
I went to the legislature, and I told the story. I took my grandmother's apron that had holes in it. She raised me. That was the start of caregiving. So we did get money. Here's the thing. There's already an infrastructure in this state. There's Healthy Grandfamilies Coalitions in every county. There is Metro AAA in every county. There is ADRC across the state. There are senior centers. All we need is something that will resonate, like 1-800-CAREGIVER. Now, I love Kim. We work under the same umbrella, but what's ADRC? Most people don't know. What is Bridging Resources? Most people don't know. But 1-800-CAREGIVER?
Seems self-evident.
It does. And it seems simple, and I don't mean to simplify it, but I proved this by implementing grand families in every county in the state of West Virginia. And I told the legislature, if you'll give me the money, I did a good job of whining. I'm a good whiner. And you'll give me the money, and I'll prove to you I'll get it in all 55 counties. In December of that year, I finished it. My stepfather became
diagnosed with dementia. When what started it was the checkbook wasn't balancing. He was meticulous. It was off a penny. And he you got to do something. You got to do something. Next thing that happened a few weeks later, I'm in the kitchen. Bonnie, isn't there something that makes coffee? Yeah, Dad. Well, can we buy something that'll make coffee for me? And I'm sitting there staring at the coffee pot that has sat in the same place for 35 years. And then I knew it was all over with. Took a lot of things, but all that, I've got a career. I had to find a caregiver. I had to figure out the money. But fortunately, before all this happened, he put the house in my name. My name was on everything. And I didn't care if there wasn't much, but I didn't care if there was a penny left. It all went to take care of him. Had I not had that, I didn't have the money. I wasn't making that much money. And because of that, I could sleep at night. I had a wonderful caregiver. I thank the Lord for her every day. While he was in the nursing home in his last days, I paid her to come to the nursing home in case his mind got better, or in case he could return home and he wouldn't forget her. And we were all there when he died. I'm telling you, this caregiver thing, and it doesn't matter if it's me taking care of the elderly, if it's grandparents raising grandchildren, you have no idea what they go through. But you know what? Those grandparents knew they could call in to Institute, West Virginia. They knew the number. They knew how to find us. They knew the county contacts, and we were able to move mountains. The legislature continued every year after that to fund.
A frequent refrain at our caregiving event focuses on the confusion over where families can get information. George Manahan runs a statewide Parkinson's support group and says he fields calls directly from people needing help for family members with Parkinson's. He wonders what it would be like if there was a memorable 1-800 number for caregivers.
I get calls from people in Illinois, in Virginia. Their parents live here, it's the kids. And they can't come back, and they can't take their parents where they are. So, I get these calls. What do we do to help them? To be honest with you, I know most of you guys up here, but the 1-800 caregiver is such a, but Dr. Slimp and I are sitting back there and said, what if we had a 1-800 number? But that's going to take some money. It's going to take some time. But at least if you're in another state, you can find it. I've also thought of FQHCs, Federally Qualified Health Centers. I don't know if this is part of a burden that they could take as well. I don't know what their funding issues are, but they're in 60, 70 communities. But Parkinson's is a slow-moving disease, and it takes a while for you to succumb from it. And that means we need care in our homes if we can, for a long time. This is not a fast disease. If it's fast, it's something else, I always tell people. But thank you. I appreciate the good crowd this evening.
Yeah, me too. Debbie?
So I just wanted to say one more thing that sort of encompassed what some other people had brought up about the 1-800 caregiver number, and also that to recognize that caregiving isn't just, the elderly. There are children that need care. There are lots of people that don't meet the age group. And so one thing that I think that is important is to recognize, no matter what your age is, to still reach out to some of these companies, and to also continue to recognize that we may be talking about caregiving and thinking about it being, in my case, dementia related, but, do know that there are resources that can encompass all types of caregiving and needs of the caregiver. The legislature, not this year, but last year, mandated that a task force be created to help see into the future the needs of the aging population in the state of West Virginia. And this year, the task force looked back and said, there was a plan that was created before that laid somewhere and no one did anything with that plan. And so we went back to the legislature and introduced a bill and asked that a dementia care services specialist, I'm not exactly sure if that's the correct title, be created, that this position be created in the state of West Virginia that would help to pull all these services together. And the legislature listened. The bill was introduced. It passed unanimously. We do need to continue to call our representatives to show up. We need to tell our stories. And when we tell those stories, whether we like to believe it or not, our representatives are human. They do have other people in their lives that are affected. They are sometimes caregivers themselves or in need of hiring people to deliver care to their loved ones. So we do need to continue to tell our stories, make those calls, and know that at least in the state of West Virginia, like other states across the country, there will be someone in the government who's going to be responsible for helping to bring all of the services together as a dementia care coordinator for the state of West Virginia.
You know, I've watched this documentary. I've prepared for this evening. I've tried to get a panel together of people who I thought could answer this. I've had other people show up and say, hey, I'd like to get my voice in here too. But what I'm not completely getting is, at least here in West Virginia, is everybody talking to each other? Or is there dots connecting? And
let you all answer that. Yeah. Some of us are. The way I describe it is caregiving's a big puzzle, right?
Yeah.
If we don't have every single piece, every one of you, it doesn't work. In West Virginia, some of us are siloed, and we don't have a lot of systems, but the people here bringing back the village, ourselves, are hopefully starting a movement. I do have one suggestion, and someone asked this question. For over 17 years, I've gone to the legislators, I've gone to DC, worked with these folks, and I just want to say this to you. I could take you right to the politicians, and I could tell your story. But I'll tell you what will move them, what will change them, is going there telling your story, right? We all have a son, we all have a brother, we all have a mother, we all have a grandfather. So they hear those people and see those people when you tell your story. And I've seen the change, right? You've seen the change. So my message is find your organization, AARP, Alzheimer's Association, contact me, Tabitha, any of these people if you don't know where to start. But that's how the movement will change. So never underestimate your story. If or when you're comfortable with it, please tell it.
During our community conversation, we touch on many aspects of caregiving. The hands-on nature of the work, the emotional weight, the financial strain, and the larger systems that either support or fail to support those who do this work every day. Our audience and panelists all agree the caregiving crisis will not disappear. But some wonder how to make it clear to our leaders, especially here in West Virginia. This isn't just a marginal issue. It's central to the health and future of our communities. The proposed cuts to Medicaid coverage in President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill could have lasting impacts for Appalachia and West Virginians. Families USA, a nonpartisan group advocating for healthcare consumers, says independent rural hospitals like West Virginia's Roane General Hospital in Roane County are at risk of losing more than $1 million in projected revenue from cuts in Medicaid benefits. These independent rural hospitals are already operating with tight margins, and any loss can mean trimming programs or even closing. If these independent hospitals close, it also means thousands may need to travel farther to receive their health care, which could make some people delay seeking treatment. This affects the local economy too, with another study showing that rural hospital closings can reduce job opportunities by 14%. The Caregiving documentary reminds us there's no one answer for where care should come from.
Throughout history, there's been a back and forth between two different stories. A story that care is an individual responsibility to be shouldered within individual families. And then we realize just how untenable that is, and then we try to move the conversation towards a more societal responsibility for care. And there's been this kind of dialogue between those two narratives. Meanwhile, the pressures on everyday people in our country have just exponentially increased, and we've become more and more isolated in how we think about how we solve those challenges.
Bringing the community together for a conversation about caregiving is a valuable way to help people make connections. That's just one step in a process of compassionate exchanges that reflect the dignity of those who need care and the quiet strength of those who give it. You've been listening to Us and Them. Our team for this episode was me, Trey Kay, Samantha Gatzik, and Kate Smith. Thanks to Bobby Lee Messer for recording the audio at the event, Nolan Duncan for audience interviews, and Americo Valdez for helping plan the evening. And special thanks to our panelists, Eric Hicks, Dr. Orlando Craighead, and Kimberly Taylor Newsom. Michael Lipton, Tristan Lozow, and Ahmed Solomon wrote and performed the Us and Them show music. Mark Lerner designed our logo. The marvelous people at PRX and West Virginia Public Broadcasting make Us and Them possible. So do grants from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation, the Daywood Foundation, the CRC Foundation, and WETA. Hey, we'd love to get your thoughts about this episode. Would you share them with us on our Facebook page? Us and Them was originally developed with assistance from the mentorship program at AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio. We'll see you next time on Us and Them.
Support for this podcast comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.